Hi, and welcome to the Kale Houser Leadership Secrets podcast. Today, we're going to talk about consistency of your message. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Kale Houser Leadership Secrets podcast. My name is Kale Houser. Thank you so much for joining me today. Hey, as we start another round of podcasts, another week of podcasts, I really appreciate you being willing to stick with me. If you're just picking me up in the middle of these, maybe you've joined last week or one of my guest speakers brought you in. I really appreciate the attention, the likes, and the subscribes. It really helps the channel grow. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. So this past weekend, I had the opportunity to celebrate my youngest son's birthday. He turned 13, which is pretty amazing and incredible, right? We all probably remember as we entered our teenage years of what that meant and what that entailed for us and how our lives kind of started to change in that. So it was a pretty fun weekend. And to celebrate, we took the Bright Line train down to Miami to go to the Science Museum and go out to dinner. And we went to the Hard Rock Cafe, right? One of those restaurants that you don't normally go to, but it's kind of a fun way to go and celebrate, do something different and special. And it's right down there on the water in Miami. And the Science Museum down there is pretty legit as well if you ever get the chance to go. Especially for younger children and like early teenagers. Not so much probably for teenagers, but like early type teenagers, guys. But the boys had fun. We enjoyed, seeing the aquarium and all that good stuff. But the moral of the story, or not the moral of the story, but where this story is going is on our way back. So we had gone down in the morning. We got down to Miami about 10 in the morning. It's an hour-long train ride. But it's a really nice, the Bright Line's this really cool thing in South Florida that's connecting the cities going up and down. So, you don't have to drive into Miami and downtown Miami and deal with traffic and all that kind of stuff. So it was part of the gift was getting to do this experience with the Bright Line because it's just a real cool high-speed train that they've got going. But we'd spend all day, exhausting. We were absolutely stuffed from the Hard Rock and doing dessert and celebrating and all that jazz. And we were coming back, and it was about 8:30 coming back at night. And we were just, kind of all tired just from walking around and being out and being go from that. And as we were on the train, there was this other young family that was right. So we were at one of the 2-and-2 with a little table on the train between us for the 4-seater. And then there was another young family that was the exact same setup right next to us, or right, I guess, behind us. And it was a mom and dad, and definitely on the younger side, mom and dad. I'm guessing, probably mid to late 20s. And then their child, I'm guessing, was in the 5 to 6 year range. Little boy, and then presumably grandma, one of the mom or the dad's mother was with them. So this 4-party, and no big deal. The boy was obviously excited. I don't know if they were traveling home or traveling somewhere. Coming up further north from Miami or going home after being in Miami like we were. But the kid was just being a normal little, 5, 6 year old little boy. No big deal. It wasn't obnoxious or anything. He was just very chatty, and they were doing very, very well, actually, of keeping him engaged. And, the Bright Line does really good, too, because they hand out, like, coloring books with a little activity book and stuff, all train-type specific things for young kids. But this is not griping about the parents at all. It's not one of those posts. This is, like, actually, good job, you guys, because they were doing phenomenal. It was late at night. The young boy was obviously very excited about, their trip or whatever was coming up or where they were going or where they had been, and just being normal. But as with little boys and little girls, as happens, as their excitement level starts to go, they just, they get not out of control, but they let their voices go and they squeal and they scream and they, just talk really loud and all this stuff. And the parents were doing just phenomenal of recognizing and being courteous, ding, 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 like being actually courteous to the rest of us on the train, of helping kind of manage and control this little boy instead of letting him just go crazy and with excitement. And none of it was bad. He wasn't throwing a fit, nothing like that. And I'm not complaining about that by any stretch. But again, being courteous, nobody wants to listen to a screaming little kid, even when they're screams of glee and excitement, right? It's still piercing to the rest of our ears and things. And they're doing phenomenal. Like, hey, I forget the little kid's name. We'll just say Jack. Hey, Jack, remember, we're on a train. Keep our voices down, da, da, da. And it was fine. And Jack would, kind of settle back down and they'd be doing their thing. And then he'd kind of, and go, oh, Jack, Jack. And at one point I even kind of overheard the mother kind of explaining to little Jack of, hey, there's a time to use, to raise our voices and use our outside voices, but, on a train with these other people, being in this environment, it's not, right? They were like using it as a teaching moment for young Jack and helping him fit into society and all those types of things. Which was phenomenal. Like it was refreshing to be around that, because so often, especially in a public setting, we're not around that. We're around parents who are maybe fed up with dealing and for the 1,000th time reminding their child to not scream and squeal. And we had that earlier at the restaurant. We had that where a family, and you could kind of tell they were probably there on vacation and they dealt with a lot, and they were at this family dinner at Hard Rock, and I think there were 3 kids, and this was the youngest of the 3. It was probably, I'm guessing, in the 2 to 3 year range, and he was just like, not screaming out of anger or crying, but screaming out of delight and things like that. But it was this shrill that kind of just went straight up the back of your spine. We all can kind of relate to that, I would imagine, of that. But the parents kind of did nothing about it, right? Because they were at their end dealing with their 3 young kids. So we all had to a little bit suffer with that during our dinner. But opposite end, this family on the train, phenomenal, did great. But there was one point, and this is, why we're doing this podcast. There was one point, because I'm listening to all this, and because I pay attention to what's around me. I wasn't eavesdropping per se, but I very much pay attention and observe those around me. At one point, and I don't know what the young kid Jack had done, but the mom goes, "You sit down right now," like screams, not quite top of her lungs. I'm sure she could have gone a couple octaves and a couple notches higher on the volume meter, but pretty darn close. And especially for being in an enclosed scenario as we were on this train car. And I go, and it just struck me, right? Because of course, everyone on the train and half the people were like, lulling into a kind of an early evening nap on this train, Liz included. And I go, how fascinating that she had spent literally the last like 30 or 40 minutes like trying to teach young Jack of, we don't raise our voices, and on the train we're courteous of others and things. But then she ran into this scenario, and I don't know the backstory of it. Maybe this is something that she deals with a lot, but she just kind of snapped. And in my opinion, it's not like the kid was climbing on the table, right? I think he had probably just kind of stood up in his seat, probably to reach something, or, just as kids do. Like they don't like sitting down for an hour in a specific spot and chair. But she kind of snapped and went this entirely opposite end of what she had been trying to teach young Jack this whole time. And I just thought it was so fascinating. And I started thinking about that a little bit more of how do we, through our messaging, right? So, and you should be, as a business owner, you should have very clear messaging you're trying to communicate to your people. Messaging of what your culture is like, how you interact with customers, how you interact with each other, what kind of image you're wanting to put out to your marketplace and to your industry. You should be very purposeful that, and there should be, for lack of a better term, kind of talking points of what your company stands for and what niche you meet in your workplace. All those types of things that go into your business identity. And then whether by pure reaction or laziness or a lack of attention or just, a distraction, you as the business owner, you as the one that's driving that ship and setting those standards, you literally wrote the SOPs, you wrote the employee handbook for all your people. Are you doing things that are essentially undermining and countermanding those things that you're trying to implement, your culture? Are you sitting there telling people like, nope, we don't raise our voices, we don't, do this and this and that, and then all of a sudden, because you see something, you just scream across the room, right, at whoever to try to address that? And I would argue, and guilty as charged, that we all kind of do this and we catch ourselves. And again, this could be pure, emotional reactions. This could be pure just being distracted and kind of forgetting for a little bit. But the important part of this as the leader, because again, you're kind of called to a little bit higher standard than everyone else in your organization. You're the one setting that standard and that example. How are you fixing that? How are you fixing yourself to not do that, or at least do that significantly less, or recognize it when it happens? Do you have, a trusted advisor or a trusted partner in your business that you can kind of go, hey, I'm really struggling with this. Obviously, we've had some fallout from it. I really need you to come to me because I'm finding it difficult of recognizing when I'm doing this thing, right? That's countermanding, or it's going against this culture that you're trying to build. And you can have that trusted advisor be that person for you. Like, hey, hey, Kale, you just did it, bro. You just went out there and screamed at Sally across the room when we're trying to build this culture of we're not screaming across the room, right? We're walking over to people's desks to have conversations instead of doing it, across the office and that kind of stuff. So if you have that, definitely have that conversation with that person to help you get better, to help you, even if it's like just a subtle, little tap of the nose or a little pull and tug on the ear, right? These subtle signals, or a text message saying, hey, whippoorwill, like danger, you're doing it again. Those are all things that you can implement in your business to help you as the leader recognize these things if you're failing at that. And then beyond that, once you've recognized it, what are you doing to hold yourself accountable to stop doing those actions, right? To stop, and this could be anything, but you get the underlying point of this of there needs to be something in place and some activity or action in place on your part to start eliminating that. Because if you're going to hold other people accountable to those behaviors and to those cultures, that core values that you've set up in your business, then you need to be held for it as well. But think about that. Are there specific things that you may do that are part of your personality, right? That are part of just how you interact with people that are countermanding or undermining the culture and the business identity you're trying to create? And I'm betting that if you think about it honestly, if you think about it in that moment of truth with just you, yourself, and you, that you will find something that you'll whether it's an attitude you have, grumpiness coming into work, or you showing up late, dinking around playing a video game or playing solitaire on your computer on work time, right? Even though you're the owner of the company, you're setting those standards. And we all see those examples, especially in a workplace. We look to that business leader, and whatever that person is doing, we kind of take as acceptable of what we can do as employees or as team members, right? And you need to really be aware of that. So what kind of consistency of messaging are you putting out there, right? Are you being that consistent message, or are you actually kind of undermining that message you're trying to put out? So just a little something to think about, especially, as you're around, whether it be on a train or a subway or an airplane, a boat, cruise, whatever, kind of see how, and it's easiest to see in the family type context, right? Like, how are our parents interacting with their kids? But certainly how are as you go out and interact with other businesses, if that's kind of your model, how are the leaders of those businesses interacting with their employees? And does it reinforce and just build up that business identity and that culture that they're trying to build? Or is there a disconnect there between the leadership, right? Kind of a double, I don't know if double standard is the right word, but kind of a double standard in the sense of, the leader is doing one thing while expecting another from their people. All right. I hope you've had a chance to check out the new website, kalehouser.com. If you have, please let me know what you think. It is a work in progress as far as keeping it updated and all those types of things. So we're going to get our processes down for that, especially getting the podcast uploaded and whatnot in a timely manner. As always, feel free to drop me a line at kale@kalehouserleadership.com. That would be phenomenal if there's anything I can help you with. That's kind of what we do. We're here to help small businesses. And as well, depending on when you're listening to this, we've got our upcoming live event in West Palm Beach on July 7th. We'd love for you to join us to learn about how to attract, hire, and retain phenomenal employees. That'll be pretty legit. So I'm looking forward to that. And I will certainly give you an update of what happens and how we're able to help local business owners here in the Southern Florida area. All right, everybody. Hey, I hope you're having a fantastic afternoon no matter where you're at in the world. Bye.